Hi, I'm Ron Spurnberg, co-founder and CEO of Hi Mama. Welcome to our podcast about all things early childhood education. Today, I speak with Julie Bartkus, the founder of Childcare Business Success. Julie is all about vision, having a vision and executing on it to create positive, productive, and profitable childcare businesses. She's been in the industry for over 17 years and has some really sensible strategies for improving the quality of childcare programs with her approaches for childcare business success. There's some great content in our second episode of the Preschool podcast, so let's jump into it. Today, we've got Julie Bartkus with us, and let's just start off, Julie, by telling us a little bit more about who you are and how you've gotten into the business of consulting with childcare programs.
Sure, Ron. Thank you for having me here. So I've been in the industry for over 17 years, and I've got a little story that goes behind how I got into this industry. But I did work as a childcare teacher in many different classrooms many, many moons ago. And then I ventured out into my own business, and I had a lot of life experiences that led me to discover how important staff motivation was and what caused workplace gossip. So I started going into childcare programs talking about communication, about gossip, about really how to have a motivated staff, which is a crucial element in having a successful childcare business. And as we continued the journey in the childcare industry, one component was really missing is that we really have to tie it in, staff motivation, to how successful our entire business is, because it's such an important piece of our model. So now we have this whole childcare business success model that we look at and can evaluate a childcare business or childcare program and help our childcare owners really make some quantum leaps with where they're going with their efforts to get to the level that they want to get to.
So let me just touch on that point a little bit. I've seen on your website, for example, as well, you do talk a lot about motivating and retaining staff. Why did you ultimately decide that that is such an important piece for childcare programs?
Well, I really believe that the staff that you have in place really contributes to at least 95% of your childcare business success. I mean, imagine your childcare program running without staff in place, let alone good staff, let alone incredibly motivated staff. So when we look at all the different places that staff have the opportunity to touch within your business model, they really impact your marketing, they impact your self-motivation levels, and they impact everybody else on the team. So it's really an incredible dynamic to get right so that you have a whole motivated staff to support your big, bold vision. Because oftentimes, Ron, we look at, we're low in enrollments, so let's now look at marketing. Let's market. And what I find is that if we take strategy and we add more strategy, we just need more strategy. But if we could have some real deep transformation happen within our program to understand why are the things happening that are going on within our program, and then we add some great strategy to that, we get results in record time, whether it's filling enrollments, transforming our workplace culture, boosting our profits. Does that answer?
It does, and it's a very interesting topic that seems to be coming up very regularly as a theme in our podcast episodes. Is empowering staff, motivating staff is just so important. And it's such an important area. The question is then, you've touched on a lot of it, which is they're 95% of the success. They touch on so many points. They're the face of your business. But how do you do it? That's maybe the big question that people have.
The secret. Well, and that's where we've been studying. So, when I first started in this industry, we would go into childcare programs, and I would interview every single level of staff, from the bus driver to the cook to the owners, to say what motivates you and what drains your motivation. So there's a very important comprehensive element that we've got our hands around to really help you sustain long-lasting motivation in your child care program. So when you ask the question, well, how do you do it? One of the things that I challenge people to think about is, well, why aren't your staff motivated? So think about these people who you hire, and they're excited to come into work, or at least if you're hiring right from the start, they're excited to come into work, right? They can't wait for their first day. But then after the second day, third day, week, it's like, who is this person who I hired? And why aren't they excited or enthusiastic anymore? So there's a gap of what's happening in those first few days of employment, or those first few weeks or first few months, that really demotivate staff. So when we look at, well, what will motivate them, we have to understand, first of all, well, what's draining their motivation? Because if they come in excited and enthusiastic, what's happening in the workplace that is taking that element away from that person who we hired? Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so that's really what we do, is we look and we're able to quickly see what are those demotivators, so that our leaders and our owners can have this concrete plan of action of what they need to do more of or differently. And a lot of times where we're going wrong is that we're treating what I call the symptom, where we're just putting Band-Aids. It's like something's happening in the workplace. There's gossip, or people are tardy, or there's absenteeism. And so let's just put a Band-Aid over it. Let's bring in donuts on a Friday, or let's buy everybody nice gifts. And those things do not sustain long-lasting motivation. So it takes a deeper dig, a deeper dive to say, well, what is really the component that's going to switch this around for us?
Mm-hmm. And if I can just touch on the point of empowerment as it relates to that, I just want to get your thoughts about that, because a couple of the conversations that I've had with people that I find to be quite interesting, and where they've had a lot of success in transforming their culture, is by giving more opportunities to their staff to own and be accountable for whatever it is, small or large, but basically giving them opportunities to show their own leadership and show their strengths and their skills and experience and education in their role. Is that something that you touch on in your programs as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a 5-step plan of action for managing, motivating, and retaining great staff, which is, in addition, it's incorporated into our holistic business model that we teach. But within these 5 steps is the component of challenging your team. It is really important to give them ownership and to help them feel empowered. But in order to get them to that point, so that would be like step number 3 in our 5-step plan of action, and all the steps are cumulative. But there are a couple of other things really critical that we have to do, and one of them is really possess a strong positive belief in our team. And that would be step number 1 in our 5-step plan of action. But it's more than just giving it lip service, what I call a smile on a stick, where we pump ourselves up and, yes, we feel positive about everybody today. It's about where we genuinely and authentically feel positive and feel excited about the people who do work for us. But a lot of times we're tolerating things, and we don't get to that authentic and genuine place. So then the leader has to really step back and say, okay, what is it that I need to do more of or differently so I can get myself to the place where I really possess a strong positive belief? So we could just jump ahead to, hey, let's challenge our team. Let's empower them. But there's a whole kind of backstory that has to go along with that to support it, so that does sustain motivation when you put those efforts into place.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So one of your other pieces that you seem to be very focused on is having a big, bold vision.
You got that. We call it our big, bold, dreamy vision. Yeah.
And I think that's great as well. And it's really great to hear that a lot of the things that you're focusing on are also things that we've noticed as at Hi Mama, just anecdotally in the childcare programs that we work with. The ones that seem to be really successful are doing a lot of the things that you're talking about. And why is a big, bold, dreamy vision an important part of that puzzle?
Yeah, so we have our childcare business success model, which I referenced, and the vision is really the core piece of the model. And when I illustrate the childcare business success model, it's really like a series of interdependent rings. And the vision is the center ring or the center component. And if you pull that vision out, everything else collapses because all those other pieces are dependent upon that center piece being really strong. So the pieces that surround the vision include your mindset and your people and your processes and then eventually your profits. But if you pull that out, the whole thing just kind of collapses. So your vision is really what gives you as the child care owner or the child care director strength. And we've all heard the famous biblical quote, right? Where in absence of a vision, your people will. Have you heard this one?
Leave, exit, I don't know.
Right. Well, in absence of a vision, your people will perish.
Yes.
So when there's not this big, bold, dreamy vision, not only, is your motivation and your enthusiasm for the business, for your baby that you created, does it crumble, but also everybody else crumbles. And I often ask our leaders, especially our owners, where are you leading your team to? And a lot of times we start our child care businesses, our child care program with this incredible enthusiasm for what we're going to bring to life, and we have this incredible why in place. We think about the children or our children who didn't have the care, and we brought this program to life so that no kids would ever, not have a really good place to help nurture and empower them. But then as life goes on, we get kind of swayed by, negative reviews, negative comments parents make, negative comments staff make, and we start swaying. And before you know it, our vision starts getting really depleted, and it crumbles, and we forget about it. And if we're not leading by a vision, what we're leading by is stress. So often the vision becomes just to make it through the daily stress. And we lose sight of what this big, bold, dreamy vision is, which pulls us back to a place of authenticity and a place of genuine functioning so that everything else can flow from that, including our marketing, including our communication, including the culture we want to create. So what I see happening a lot is that we really build the whole business model backwards instead of doing it really from the foundational element of that big, bold, dreamy vision.
Now, this makes a lot of sense to me. I'm going to play the devil's advocate, and let's say I'm a childcare owner, director, administrator, and I say, Julie, that all sounds great, but I think my childcare program runs just fine. We've been doing it for 20 years. Why is business success so important for my organization? We seem to be doing just fine.
Well, everybody's going to have their own personal thermometer, so to speak, right? So if you have an owner who says, everything's great, I don't need to make any changes, then that's fine. But most people internally, even if they don't say it externally, know that there's another place that they want to grow to. And life is just like business, just like our child care program. Things are always in a constant state of change. We're either growing or we're either dying. So if we have somebody who says, oh, my program's great, it stayed the same for 5 years, it's not, because that vision is either getting smaller or it's getting bigger. So you have to ask yourself personally, are you really on this? And this is why I say, how you do anything is how you do everything. Because especially as a business owner or even as a director, it's like things just don't impact one area of your life. It's really all consuming, where your business does overlap into your personal life. So you have to look at, what am I tolerating? What am I resisting doing? And a lot of times we say that we're okay and everything's fine because there's something that we're in great resistance over us needing to do. And it might be getting out to the community. It might be whatever it might be. But there are some things that we're resisting doing, which makes us go to that place of, everything's fine and we're happy. But most of the time, that's not really the case. There's something else internally going on that you're just not really recognizing. And we have clients. Most of our clients have been in the industry, well, sometimes 5 years, but one gentleman who's coming out to our conference has been in the industry for 50 years.
Wow.
So,
and I know, we deal with this at Hi Mama as well, but I think especially with the younger generation today, they're looking for more than just a job where they get a paycheck, right? Like they want to work in a place where they feel like they have friends, and it's a place where they enjoy being, and they are excited to go to work every day. And I think more and more early childhood educators are looking for that type of environment, and they deserve that, I think, as well.
Absolutely. And people look to go and to be part of something bigger than themselves. And some people can take a hold and become a leader, with that kind of guidance. And other people are really great followers. But everybody in all teams that I work with want to be part of something bigger. They're going to play some kind of piece. It's just a matter of how big are we going to create it as a leader in the industry, and how are we going to inspire our folks to be part of it. And even if you're part of a very negative or very gossipy team, and I go into these environments all the time, we ask people, how many of you want to feel more positive and productive coming into work? Even the most negative person will, raise their hand and say, yes, I do. The challenge is they just don't know how to get there by themselves. And that goes back to that vision being so important, because if it's not the guiding force and nobody knows how to get there, nobody's operating in that visionary stance, everybody's just kind of walking around scratching their head saying, yeah, we'd like that to happen, but how does it?
And would you say that's the main challenge of a lot of the childcare programs out there that you work with, is sort of revisiting that core piece of the vision and really focusing on that and executing on it? Is that it? Is it the vision piece, or is it other pieces that are really the main challenges that they're facing?
Well, if we were to break it down into a core fundamental element, I would say absolutely, yes, it's the vision. Mm-hmm. The challenge, we don't know how to bring it back, and we don't know how to live in the vision. A lot of us have a vision, we tape it up to the wall, put a thumbtack, through it, and it's up there, but we say, oh, well, we have a vision, but we're not really living in it. And when you live in your vision, it's a feeling that you project onto the outside world, so that when people come in for a tour or new staff come in to possibly work at your childcare program, they feel it. And that's how people make their buying decisions. And that's why once you get this element right, you could so quickly change your struggle for not having enough enrollments to being full with a waiting list like many of our clients. But it all goes back to really understanding the holistic business model, instead of just saying, oh, we're low enrollments, we need to do this, or, oh, our staff is unmotivated, we need to do something to motivate them. It's really looking at the big picture and taking some brave steps to transform it for you and for everybody in your program.
As someone who's worked as a business consultant outside the childcare sector, I wouldn't say that is unique to childcare. Why do you think a lot of businesses and childcare organizations as well struggle with the issue of, focusing in on a bigger vision?
And you're right. It's not just unique to the childcare industry. I think the childcare industry has the opportunity to be very impactful with the work that we do. We touch so many lives in many ways. So I just want to add that's why it's so important in this industry, even more so than like working in a telecommunication company or, we're impacting the children. We're impacting the future of the world. So your question, what was your question again?
Of why the vision is the main challenge of childcare programs, do you think?
I think it is because we're in an industry where we are very conscientious of making sure that people in our care and who walk through our doors are happy. Mm-hmm. And that happiness can come at a price if we don't have really good professional boundaries around what that happiness means. So some people will even use their slogans, and this is what I heard a lot when I was first in this industry. Oh, we just want happy staff. We want happy kids, and we want happy parents. Especially as women, we kind of have this needy place that we function from to make sure other people are happy. And sometimes with that comes the bending of what we really desire in our hearts to bring to life. But it might also be listening to negative comments, taking those in, and letting them crush or collapse your vision. So there's a lot of things that we hear from staff, a lot of things that we hear from parents, a lot of things we hear from community, negative reviews online, people not paying us, whatever it might be. But all of those things, the reality of the business can cause that vision to crumble, because the vision needs to be supported, and the vision supports, but it also needs to be supported by your mindset. And, that's a second part of our business model. but it's really important that when you operate from a visionary perspective that you really see what you want to bring into fruition with more than your eyes, your physical eyes. It has to be a deeper level of seeing it with your mind first, like every great visionary, right? That's why it's a vision. You have the vision, but you don't see it with your eyes because reality will dictate something else is happening and unfolding, and it might even tell you that what you really want to transpire is impossible. So you've really got to back it up with a strong mindset that says, you know what, this is the desire that's in my heart, and this is what it looks like, and I can't yet see it with my eyes, but I know in my mind's eye that it can absolutely come into fruition.
Yes, and I know something that you mentioned as well, I think on the website, is about the hamster wheel. And I think you touch on a little bit there with some of those points too around, there's so much going on as a director, owner, administrator of a childcare program that I think it's really easy to lose sight of your big vision when, you're putting out fires kind of left, right, and center. So I think a lot of it is kind of getting out of that hamster wheel that you speak of as well.
Yeah, I love the hamster wheel image. So basically, we did an illustration of a person running on a hamster wheel wearing several different hats. And that's just reflective of the owners and directors that we talk to a lot because they're like, I'm wearing so many hats. How do I even get off the hamster wheel to start operating in more of that visionary position so that I can really bring things into life? And that's what's really hard. You talked about staying in your vision, or bringing that to life and the difficulty of it, because when you come into your child care program, 100 different things will hit you. And it's not like, oh, let me step back now and be the visionary. It's like, oh, got to deal with this one, got to deal with this one, got to deal with this one, got to deal with this one. And you've got realities of call-outs, you've got reality of parents. Just everything is right there so bluntly in your face. How do you possibly bring the impossible into existence? But our clients do it, and we work through them with that to help them get to that point.
Yeah. And so I know you have a framework for this, but, if I'm a director that feels like I'm being pulled in all different directions, what are your tips for freeing up my time to really focus on that so important vision and living in that vision?
Well, so if you're a director or even an owner and you've got so many people eating up your time, there's a couple of things to do, and one is to pay attention to the thoughts that you're thinking, because the thoughts that you're thinking can really lead to a lot of things being harder than they need to be, and that really takes up a lot of time. So I always say the hardest thing about, having a successful business or motivating your staff is what's going to go on between your two ears. Because as you process, all these different thoughts pop into your mind, and if the thoughts are primarily negative, every negative thought can lead to 8 hours of procrastination. So if you're thinking a negative thought about a parent, you're thinking a negative thought about a staff member, you're thinking a negative thought about, a fight you got into with your loved one, whatever it might be, those things are very time-consuming. So that's number one. The second thing is to really think in terms of your communication and switching it from quantity of communication to quality communication. A lot of times we think quantity is better, but it's not necessarily the case. So it takes you pulling yourself back and saying, okay, what is the communication that my team feels that they need to have in order to do their jobs effectively? And that word feel is a super important word in there because perception is truth. So if they feel they need communication, we have to step back and address that and then purposely decide, well, what can we put into place to have real quality communication and systematize our communication and think about how do we make it effective but not necessarily to where it's in huge quantities.
Super helpful. I can relate to those points as well. Taking a bit of a different line of questioning here, you have spent over 17 years in the childcare industry, so you know a lot about it. One thing that I think a lot of people struggle with, parents in particular, is what might be seen as a bit of a dichotomy in that hey, as a parent, I pay so much for my child to go to daycare or to this early learning program, And yet it seems like from working within the childcare industry, a lot of childcare programs don't have a lot of discretionary spending money and are really struggling to get by. And like I said, there seems to be a misalignment between, parents thinking it's really expensive, and yet the childcare programs, a lot of them seem to be struggling. Why do you think that is?
Hmm. We spent like over a couple of years talking to our owners about the profit killers that your security cameras will never reveal to you. And there is a misalignment because there's a lot of things that we don't see in our profit and loss statement in terms of the profits that are leaking out of our pocket and where some of those big, huge, expensive costs are and how we could really make our whole business model work with us. So one of the things that we do is we look at your profit potential with our childcare owners and directors and say, if you were really functioning at full capacity with full enrollments and you had a motivated staff and all of these factors were in place, how much more profitable could your childcare program be? And some people start to get the formula right, but you have to realize that, when we look at our multi-site clients, and we've got a lot of single-site, a lot of multi-site, people who are transitioning from home into center, so all different levels. But when you get into the multi-site level, it's easy to sit there and compute numbers that say that because staff are unmotivated, it's costing us like $4.5 million or $6 million since the inception of our business. So it's really important to look at things that aren't necessarily line-by-line items. And a lot of people are saying, okay, here's my profit and loss. Now I want to compare that with everybody else's profit and loss and see what we're doing wrong. But there's a whole internal structure at work that really requires a little bit of a deeper analysis to say, okay, here's what you specifically at ABC Child Care Center need to do more of or differently so that you realize greater profit potential. And most people pull back their money with where will get them the most rewards, which is in their staff motivation efforts. So we have clients who start to get super profitable, and then they're like, okay, Julie, now you need to come back and come on site and work with our staff. So they invest in that, and then they get more and more profitable. So there are just things that we don't see when we look at it from what would seem like a very logical perspective. Here's my profit and loss, and we want to compare it to industry averages. But it's not going to show you what's really going on behind the curtains that you need to fix yourself.
Right.
Does that help answer that?
It does. Follow-up question to that.
Sure.
Let's say I'm an owner of a child care program, and I've started this child care program because I'm really passionate about working with children and improving learning outcomes for children, which a lot of child care programs are started in that way. Why is profitability important?
Oh, my goodness. Well, have you ever flown on an airplane?
Yes.
Do you want to fly on an airplane that's near bankruptcy?
No.
Why not?
Well, I've definitely seen these horror stories of people who show up at the airport to get on their flight home, and then they kind of go up to the counter, and there's a sign up there that says, "Sorry, we're bankrupt," and then they're sort of stranded. So that's one reason.
Right. But this is why profitability is important. And a lot of parents, so we've been in some different parenting groups surveying parents, and they say that if a child care program is too inexpensive, that a red flag will go up, that something in the business isn't being done right. So profitability is really important because it allows the business owner, especially one with a big, bold, dreamy vision in place, to really put monies back where it matters in your staff, and really the nurturing and caring of the kids. So if we look at a program that is struggling and doesn't have money and is cutting fees and really trying to do things for bottom line, it doesn't provide high quality. And for those of you who have flown, think about this. Think about the airlines where you're paying, pretty decent money for a ticket versus the ones I shall not mention on this podcast where it's like you're paying pretty much for a jumper seat or something, where it's like you're sitting in a seat with no cushion and no leg space. You pay a lot less, but that's what you're getting as well. And people know that if things are too inexpensive, there's a red flag there, and what is it that you're not doing?
Yeah.
And parents have told us that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, too, Ron, is that, some of our clientele, they don't have these fancy centers. They have some old toys. They have different things, but yet they're filling their programs with a waiting list of people who are paying pretty good money to be a part of their program. So it's not even necessarily about the material things like it would be like in an airplane, but it's about the thing that's most important for making sure that their children, their little miracles, are safe throughout the day, which is your staff, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and of course your building has got to be a safe place. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we put money into things where it doesn't necessarily really matter, you know, to have the nicest equipment, because we've been called into multi-sites where they've got heated baby floors, they had Keurigs before Keurigs were cool, and, you know, they're still having problems with staff motivation, retaining parents, and all these things. So we really have to look deep and say, well, what's really going on here, and what will turn my child care program or my child care business around? And sometimes we look at what we call bright, shiny objects. Oh, we just need this, and we need a better playground, or better this, or better sign, when it's not really any of those things that will make or break our child care business or program.
That's a very good point. And so just to reiterate, if you're thinking as a child care program owner, you know, where am I going to invest money in the quality of my programs? It makes so much sense, as you said, to invest it in a lot of the things that we've been talking about, like your staff and staff motivation and your vision, as opposed to those shiny objects. If I think about a parent, you're not going to refer a child care program to another parent because they've got better toys or a better playground, really, are you?
No, not usually. You know, and people do. You know, studies show this over and over and over. We all make buying decisions based on emotion, on the emotional connection that we feel with the person, the owner, or the director, or, you know, the thing. It's emotional. And we may justify that decision with logic, but it really comes back down to emotion. And this is why, you know, a car dealer, when you go to buy a car, what do? They slip you the keys and say, here you go, you know, take it home. You know, they want you to get emotionally connected to that thing so it becomes yours.
Right.
And, you know, and that's the same reason parents buy when they come to our program. It's an emotional connection.
That makes so much sense. Hey, this has been a super interesting conversation with you. Thanks so much for taking the time. Yeah, I did as well.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I've loved learning about Hi Mama as well.
Awesome. Last question for you. If our listeners want to find you online, where would they find you?
Well, we're going through a little bit of reconstruction with our website, but we do have our conference site is Rock My Childcare, like Rock My Baby, but rockmychildcare.com. And then you could always find me at childcarebusinesssuccess.com. And we also have a program called the Child Care Program of Excellence. So there's also childcareprogramofexcellence.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Julie.
What's your name?
Michaela.
Michaela. How are you?
Hi.
You having fun playing?
Yes.
It's a nice day, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. What's your favorite thing to play out here?
Playing monsters.
You like to play monsters? Do you like the swings? Okay. What else you like to do?
Play my Dora bike.
Oh, with your Dora bike? Oh, okay. Do you ride fast?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Well, have fun here. All right.